What if I told you that the best dividend ETF for a UK investor wasn't actually the one with the highest dividend yield? I know that sounds a bit strange, but I've spent hours researching across a plethora of different ETFs, and what I've actually figured out is there is a secret factor that turns a mediocre investment into one that could set you up for financial freedom in the future. Welcome back to the channel, and if you're new here, hi, I'm Mark of Desperately Seeking FI. As I said, I've done hours and hours of research into ETFs, and if you've watched some of my previous material, you'll see that I invest predominantly into ETFs, but dabble a little bit into dividend stocks as well. I've narrowed this down to about 10 or 11 different ETFs that I'm going to talk about, and what I will do is I will look at them against a number of different parameters. So we'll have a look at them against their dividend yield, how diversified they are, their dividend growth looks like, and then from there we'll add this little magic tweak and see which is the best dividend ETF to actually invest into. As I said, there are 11 different ETFs that I've had a quick look at, and basically here they are on this screen. I'm not going to go through each one of them in detail. I have done a number of videos that cover them off, so I'll add the playlist to my ETF reviews, and you can go away and have a look at a bit more detail into each one of them. And for those that I haven't done a video on yet, I will go away and do those over the next few weeks and months. But what we will do is we will look at these against a number of different factors. I will look at against each of the different metrics that we're going to look at. I will rate them from 1 to 11, with the 1 being the best and 11 being the worst. And then across all the different metrics, we will eventually go, this potentially is the best one to invest into. Let's just give a quick definition for what an ETF actually is: an exchange traded fund. An exchange traded fund is a type of pooled investment security, and it can be traded on the stock exchange like a normal stock. It tracks a particular index, sector, commodity, or another asset. So in basic terms, it is a basket of different stocks that you can invest into, very similarly to the way that you would invest into an individual stock on your trading exchange. Let's have a look at the first metric that we're going to have a look at, and there is no surprise here that that is going to be the dividend yield that we are looking at. And we have these running from anything as little as 1.28% right up to 5.9% on the 11 different ETFs that I've chosen to have a look at. I'm not going to go through every single one of them. I will just do the top 3 every time we come on to a new metric. So initially we are looking at the top 3 being in order: IDVY, and that is looking at the iShares Euro Dividend ETF. Then having a look at IUKD ETF. I've done a video on that one if you want to go and have a quick look. And I've also done a video on the SPDR S&P Global Dividend Aristocrats, and that's known by the ticker symbol of GLDB. That's looking at the dividend yield, and as you will figure out, it isn't just this dividend yield that is the important bit. We need to have a quick look at some of the other metrics, and we'll go into what does dividend growth rate look like, what does diversification, the expense ratio, and how has it actually performed over the last 5 years. Because as with a normal dividend stock, you might find that the dividend that something is paying is a bit of a trap, and you will see that the value has been going down over time. The next metric that we add into the mix is that dividend growth rate. So looking at how much have these ETFs increased their dividend every year. First of all, we have the US Dividend Aristocrats coming in with the highest dividend growth rate, and that is looking at 6.11%, and that's known by the ticker symbol USDV. We then have VUSA coming in, and that has been growing at a reasonably nice 5.31%. Then we have VWRL, so looking at Vanguard's FTSE All World ETF, and that has had a growth rate of 3.05. You will see there are a number of them down at the bottom of the list there, so VMID, VUKE, IUKD and UKDV, all in the negative, and that is something that we see with some of these UK dividend ETFs. They haven't been performing particularly well over the past number of years in comparison to those that are being driven by the tech sector in the US. So we then have a quick look at diversification, and we are looking at how many stocks does it hold within its ETF, and there is no surprise that we end up with the FTSE All World with over 3,600 stocks within that ETF, which gives you total world diversification given away by the fact that it is the all world ETF. You then have coming in just under 2,000 stocks in there is the VFEM, the Vanguard Emerging Markets ETF, and then behind that VHYL, looking at that all world high dividend yield ETF that Vanguard have at about 1,750 holdings in there. Way down the bottom we have ETF that had come in first on the yield is actually sitting on the bottom with only 31 European dividend stocks within that ETF. Next thing that we look at is we have the total expense ratio or the ongoing charge for that ETF, and I am always driving this forward that one of the key things that we look at is that we have this as low as we can, and in the UK the lowest that we can get is VUSA coming in at 0.7% per year, and this basically means that is the charge that that holding that ETF will cost you every year. You then have VUKE coming in at 0.09, and then just behind that VMID at 0.1% ongoing charge. Next, let's have a look at what total return has looked like over the past 5 years, and this just gives you that indication of how has that market or that sector actually progressed over the past 5 years. And there is no surprise that the American market has done really well with that tech sector. So if we are having a look at what his total return looked like as the next metric, we are looking at that being driven massively by the growth within the US tech sector specifically, and even more importantly, the Magnificent Seven driving growth in the US market. And we've certainly seen that this year with your Apple, Amazon and Alphabets all driving forward the majority of the growth in the US market over the period of 2023. So it is no surprise that VUSA comes in as the top ETF in performance wise, and it is up over 73%. You're then looking at the all world market has grown about 46% over that time period, and then the US dividend aristocrats coming in at about 27%. You will see some of the European and UK ones down at the bottom are not showing a great return, with IDVY coming in at about 19% down. If you were to just look at those 5 metrics and go, here we go, what is the best overall ETF? We would be coming out with the order looking as it is there on the screen, with VUSA, VWRL and VHYL being the top 3. And that basically just comes from the aggregation of their positions that they come in those 5 metrics. But what I wanted to do was put a little bit of a spin on that and then have a look at what happens if we look at the average return each year, and then looking at adding in the dividend yield on top of that and see what that then gives us as a potentially better way of investing into the ETFs. What we've got on the screen is we have in this column, we have the overall ranking from taking those 5 metrics, but let's have a look at what happens if we then delve down into looking at the average return, so basically looking at what the 5-year return has been for each of those ETFs, and then adding in the dividend yield, but also taking away the total expense ratio as well, we would end up with VUSA being the best ETF to actually invest into using this methodology. Obviously, everybody has their own way of working through this, and I would say go away, do your own due diligence. It will all depend on what do you believe the US market is going to do in the future, and do you think there are potentially other options out there that may give you a better return looking forward, because this is all based on past performance, and that will never predict what future returns are going to look like. But go away, have a look at some of these videos in the playlist of ETFs, which will give you a little bit more background and a bit more detail on each of the different ETFs that we actually have within this sample of 11. There are hundreds of them out there, and you could go and have a look at those either on the Invest Engine platform or Trading 212, and there are links down below if you want to go and have a look at those. Thanks very much for watching. I will see you in the next one. Cheers, bye.